All right, welcome everyone to the third up close and personal session of Women Leaders at Loc World. I'm Kathleen Bostic, and I'm a senior localization consultant and brand ambassador with Argos Multilingual. I'm both delighted and excited to be able to get these three powerful women executives together for this session. The only thing that would be better if we were all in person. So thank you for joining us. I've personally known all of these women for over 10 years, and I also know them personally because we're friends on Facebook, so I get to see their personal lives as well. And I know that they're have very crazy busy lives, but they're also very ambitious, and they've had fantastic careers. So they've got a lot of it in common over the last year, including some major career change, life changes. One of our panelists moved all the way to Ireland in the middle of the pandemic, which is always an exciting challenge. My goal in these sessions is to allow you to get to know them better, understand the story behind their successes. So they'll share their stories, challenges, key to success. I'm not sure how they'll fit it all in 10 minutes, but we'll have a live Q&A to follow. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first guest, Natalie Kelly. Many of you know her. She's been a continuous speaker at Loc World. She's got blogs, she's on podcasts. So I feel really lucky to have her today. And she's VP of localization at HubSpot. She's also on a number of boards, and she's an advisor to Lottie Dolls. She's published 2 books, including her last one, which she co-authored, called Found in Translation. She also has a very popular blog post, Born to be Global, and she's a contributor to Huffington Post and also Harvard Business Review. She has deep industry knowledge and is a wealth of information. She's a mom of 2 daughters and a pandemic puppy. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Natalie. And Natalie, why don't you kick it off by giving us a fun fact about yourself?
Thank you, Kathleen. I just want to say it's such a pleasure to be here with Anna and Siobhan and with yourself, Kathleen. I feel really honored to be part of this powerhouse crew and to be here at Loc World virtually. It's great to see everybody and familiar faces I see joining here. Fun fact about myself is that my oldest daughter was born on International Translation Day. She came 8 days late too, so it wasn't planned. It just
Yeah, what were the chances, right?
I know. I couldn't believe it. The days kept dragging on, and when she finally arrived, I was shocked because I was like, this can't be happening on International Translation Day. So that was the day I became a mother, International Translation Day.
That's awesome. So go ahead and kick off your story.
Oh my gosh. Well, my story begins as a young girl in rural Illinois, where we didn't have a lot of diversity, linguistic or otherwise, and just being very curious about the rest of the world and wanting to learn more, and getting my first textbook in Spanish and thinking, oh my gosh, I can't wait to learn this language, and assuming that everybody else in my school also wanted to, and quickly realizing nobody wanted to study Spanish with me. So I had an interest in language from a young age. I studied languages in college, majored in Spanish, went and lived in Ecuador several years of my college and did a master's degree there. And then my first job out of college was actually interpreting for AT&T Language Line, which at the time Language Line Services was part of AT&T. And I got a really great education there in business and management, and got a lot of great training and learned about the corporate world. Then I left AT&T. I went back to Ecuador on a Fulbright scholarship to study sociolinguistics, and from there, I came back to the United States and started my own business. We were then acqui-hired by a large language service provider, and I worked in product development there. And then I left there, and then I went to work at Common Sense Advisory. A lot of you know that name, industry research firm. Worked there for a while, went and worked at a language technology company. And then from there, I was introduced to someone at HubSpot and ended up joining HubSpot. So and I've stayed there for now 6 years. So that's kind of my journey in terms of where I went with my career.
So what are some of the challenges that you faced along the way?
Oh, we all, I think, as women working in technical space and localization, face our share of challenges for sure. I think one challenge that I had was simply balancing everything, especially when I became a mom. I actually struggled quite a bit to become a mom. I hope this isn't oversharing, but I think it's important that we, let people know some of the adversities and challenges we face in real life that affect our work. Um, I actually tried to become a mom many times, but I had some physical and health challenges getting in my way. So I have had 9 pregnancies, but I only have 2 children. And that kind of tells a lot about my story that has been happening behind the scenes all these years. And that's a challenge. And, when I had a lot of losses over the years, I had, male colleagues say things like, well, some people just, some women just aren't meant to be mothers and things like that. And it turned out I actually had an underlying autoimmune disease the entire time. And it got triggered with my second birth with my second child. So that was another healthcare challenge that I had to face behind the scenes. I think a lot of times people see on the surface, like, oh, so and so changed jobs or changed titles or got promoted or got this award or published a book or whatever. And they only see that side of it. They only see our professional lives and don't necessarily understand all the things that are happening because all of us on this panel today are humans. We're people. We have our struggles, we have our challenges. We don't often talk about them publicly. But I know Kathleen, you and Anna were on another panel where you talked about some of your struggles, and that it's inspiring for people to realize there's more to the story than just what meets the eye. So I wanted to share that's been my biggest challenge in my career has been the stuff that isn't even career related. It's balancing all those things together.
And you know what? That's why I love this panel so much because everyone sees you and the rest of the women on the panel as leaders and executives and they see the fun side, but they don't really know the personal side and the personal challenges. So obviously there's been a lot of work-life balances challenges in your life as well, right? And you've still managed to move up the career ladder. So how did you know when it was time to move? I mean, you were at a couple different companies, CSA and then the technology company. But when did you know it was time to make that move? Because I think we all struggle with that. Do we stay? Do we go? What are the opportunities?
Yeah. I mean, some of my moves were more intentional than others. I would love to say that I had some sort of career plan in my life, but I truthfully never did. I just kind of looked and saw what opportunities were available and tried to figure out, okay, is this something for me or not? And go with my instinct more than anything else. I think, how do you know it's time to move? For me, it's really about overall happiness, and the people you work with make up a large percentage of the time that you spend and the time you invest and the time that you give to a company. For me, it's usually about the people, but also about the scope of what I could accomplish. And there were times in different roles where I felt like, I've I'm ready to hand this off to someone else now. I've built what I need to build. I think I'm ready for a new challenge. And for me, it's usually been about learning something new. Like, am I learning? Am I growing? Have I given all that I can give here? And maybe it's time for someone else to step up and take the reins. And I do love when I can leave a legacy, but also build up some people who can take charge of something. And I feel good about handing it off and moving on to something new. So for me, it's kind of a combination of factors as to know when it's time to move into something new. But I think like all of us, we've probably had that hunger to do something new and grow and learn. And that sometimes just hits you in a way that you can't deny it. You kind of have to move on to the next thing.
I totally agree. I'm not good in maintenance. I like to build things, fix things, and then, next challenge, right? So
Exactly.
one final question for you, and then we'll go to our next guest. Did you have any coaches or mentors along the way? That was along the way, like I didn't really have any coaches or mentors. There were a few bosses that helped along the way, but now it's much more common to have those in your life to help you. So did you have any?
I mean, I would consider so many people mentors because I learn from everyone. And I would say sometimes they were bosses, sometimes they were peers. I've been fortunate to learn from so many peers who I think are phenomenal. And some of them have been promoted like to C-level positions, even at, large public companies. And I've been so fortunate to witness them. I've had a couple of official mentors. When I moved into a VP of marketing role, for example, I had an official CMO mentor who was a CMO at a public company, learned a ton from him. But I've had, I think, the best learnings from other women and other people who I can relate to, and learning from them and kind of witnessing and watching and observing how they live their lives, and paying close attention to leaders that I admire, whether they're not my boss or not. But I take a lot of inspiration from other leaders, including everybody on this panel today.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate that overview. So up next is my second guest, Siobhan Hannah. And I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Siobhan, but I have known Siobhan for many years, and she's currently the managing director of the Lionbridge AI group, which was recently bought by TELUS. And that was a big career move for Siobhan, deciding to leave Lionbridge after 15 years. I had the privilege of working with her at Lionbridge, and she was a respected, strong, charismatic leader. And one thing that she had was a really deep operations knowledge, along with extreme customer focus, which, you know, made her the customer whisperer. I mean, she could solve any problem, and she just made that happen. So, but during her 15 years at Lionbridge, she was always climbing the ladder. She held 6 different positions in 15 years. And she's also a mom of 4 children, 3 of which she had in 4 years. That's kind of a fun fact, but there was a set of twins in there, right, Siobhan? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Siobhan if you want to share your story and also start out with your fun fact.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. It's so funny and nice to hear your story told by someone like yourself. And I really I'm thrilled to participate in this session. So grateful that you invited me. My fun fact is that while I live in California, I'm originally from Belfast in Ireland, and I actually came to the US many years ago after winning a green card in the lottery. So green card lotteries do happen, and real people win them. And you know, it's kind of funny and, you know, seems improbable now. And that's often my fun fact when I introduce people. It's my children are not allowed to move to another country, speculative, at the age that I did, but I'm glad it happened. And then a related fun fact about Kathleen and myself is, yes, we are professional contacts and colleagues, and also personal friends. We once, do you remember, Kathleen, we once bumped into each other literally on a beach in Hawaii. We literally bumped into each other, and we were already good friends. So anyway, thank you for having me.
That was
today.
so funny. I remember it was that we couldn't believe we were actually both there at the same time.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Well, I'll introduce myself. I mean, Kathleen has mentioned, so I'm the managing director of the AI organization now at TELUS International, still getting used to it. Been with TELUS since January 1st, and prior to that with Lionbridge for 16 years, but really been in the loc industry since the 90s. And as Kathleen said, you know, I've held lots of different roles in operations, solutions, sales, executive roles. I ran the US at one point as well. On a personal note, born and raised in Ireland, married, 4 kids. Natalie, I loved what you shared. The balance is beautiful and it's challenging. You know, I had my 4 kids in 5.5 years, and you know, my 3rd kid ended up being twins, and it was exhausting. And you know, I think I was a bit of a perfectionist to a fault. You know, I got enough comments from male colleagues about, you know, all those children that you have, that, you know, I was really determined to not let the fact that I had a large family be perceived to slow me down. And I regret it a little bit. You know, I'm really proud of my family. You know, it's not something I want to diminish or hide. And I really now appreciate, you know, and really want to reinforce with my colleagues and myself, you know, taking the opportunity to fit in the special and the everyday moments and experiences with your family. And I won't get any cornier than that, but I think the pandemic kind of taught a lot of us that as well. But I can dive in with a bit more about me and my career path. Like I think some of us, I feel I didn't choose localization, it chose me. I'm so glad it did. I graduated with a first-class degree in the most useful degree, English, in the mid-90s over in Belfast, and moved to California, spoke multiple languages, and was an immigrant, and most of my friends were immigrants here in Los Angeles, and ended up in localization at a really exciting time to join the industry. It was a great time, very scrappy entrepreneurial moment in localization in the mid to late 90s. Such a wonderful opportunity to kind of learn the ropes. Anybody who is on today and was part of the industry then knows there were a lot of wild characters in the industry back then, lots of real all-nighters. It was such a good moment in terms of, Trados and translation memory was just coming into use, and there was an opportunity to do a little bit of desktop publishing, a bit of coding, a bit of kind of translation, and work with some really interesting emerging brands. I ended up, over the course of my career, I've experienced 4 different acquisitions. It's always been a very interesting period of kind of learning and growth. Lots of very cool travel and relocation opportunities. Lots of just very, very, very hard work and, frequent change. I had no official mentors, but some great informal mentors like yourself, Natalie. I would say, the best advice and the most kind of motivating advice was the sidebar conversations, mostly with other, women, where we would talk about, things like building, executive presence and how to navigate challenging turnarounds. There were a number of pivot points for me where there was an opportunity maybe to go to a more technical role or a, broader role. I think for me, the general mantras were say yes. I know it's kind of a cliche, but, generally did try to say yes to opportunities. There were a lot of diversity of opportunities because I was lucky at the time that I joined the industry. Change always ended up being good for me, albeit, it probably led to less sleep in the short to midterm, but it always ended up giving me more options. I once was interviewing for a key role, which was probably the most pivotal role for me in my career. And the executive that was interviewing me gave me amazing advice on how to figure out if an opportunity is right for you. He said, a new opportunity, if it's the right one, it should be equal parts. 1/3, I can do this in my sleep. 1/3, this is challenging and feels like a stretch, but I want to go for it. And 1/3, this scares the whatever out of me. I'm terrified. And, if it has sort of all 3 elements, it's something you should seriously consider. And I think I heard that advice about 18-20 years ago, and I've really remembered it frequently ever since. I do have a few things when I was preparing for this conversation that I sort of, thought through, and I don't think any of them is really, groundbreaking, but, definitely try to find a mentor, try to find touch points within the industry and in adjacent industries, individuals you trust and who you respect and admire. Return the favor, of course. I mentor multiple people. I find it really rewarding. Relationships are so important. I know that a lot of us on this call today have been in the industry for a long time, but even if you're new to the industry, your peers today maybe your peers in 10, 20 years, and, you know, invest in those relationships. Learn to delegate. I'm not great at it myself, so I always try to, you know, call it out as something I'd love to learn, you know, and find your thing. You know, I feel I've done lots of different things in the same industry over a couple of decades, but, you know, I think my thing is turning things around and problem solving. And I find that that's a horizontal capability. It's a bit stressful. It's not great for the lifestyle, but it's interesting and I like it. And it applies to lots of different functions. And if you have an opportunity to participate in some education, take it. I qualified for and was going to start my MBA twice, and I got interrupted, and I'm very grateful for the experiences, but you know, it's a regret that I didn't go after it. So if you are thinking of it, do me a favor and seriously consider it. I think, you know, that's it in terms of an overview, but thank you.
I don't think that's held you back, Siobhan. You should not have any regrets. You've had,
You know, the way you want what
learning.
you don't have.
I know, but way more learnings in the actual doing than the education, I promise you, you know. So one last question for you. So thanks for that. Great takeaways. You survived a number of CEO changes, you know, I mean, well, you know, at Lionbridge, Rory was CEO forever. And then, you know, the HIG bottom, and then you had a new CEO, and now you have a new CEO again. And I find that that's a real challenge when the leadership changes at the top and where you fit into that. So, you know, how do you feel about new CEOs and how you adapt to that new change?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There's been quite a few different executive teams that I've worked with. And, you know, I would say generally I follow the practice of watching and learning. I'm generally not the first to demand a one-on-one and make my pitch and make my play. I like to kind of understand styles and, you know, sort of lead with results, and sort of wait my turn, and, you know, just do my research. It's worked pretty well. Yeah, there's been a lot of change, in particular in the last 5 years. I've been really lucky with the CEOs and the executive teams that I've worked with. I mean, they're really high caliber, whether it's prior Lionbridge, you know, current Lionbridge team is a great team, and the TI team. TI is a totally different culture because it's not a localization company, of course, and, you know, it's a $10 billion company with 54,000 employees. So it just is a different pace and a different scale, but also a fantastic team. And, you know, I usually keep my head down and just hopefully the results do the talking, and then work on building individual relationships with the right executives.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Results matter, right? I mean,
yeah,
so that's fantastic. Well, thanks, Siobhan. I appreciate that and all your insights. And I hope you'll stick around for the Q&A at the end.
Absolutely.
So next guest is Anna Schlegel. I feel like I don't really need to do much intro because everyone knows her. She's been in the industry for a long time, speaker, she's won multiple awards, but she's got a big change. She recently joined Procore as the Vice President of Product, International and Globalization. I think we were all surprised to see that change after being at NetApp for 11 plus years. But Anna's been in the tech industry for over 20 years, and she was leading teams at NetApp, Cisco, VMware, Xerox, VeriSign. And she also served as the global executive sponsor of NetApp's Women in Technology organization. And she also is on numerous boards, nonprofits. I mean, the list is long, as many of you know. But I think one of the things I want to call out is most recently she made the list of top 100 global women. This is not localization, this is global women on CIO Look. So congratulations, Anna. That's it's a way to represent us. She's also a co-founder of Women in Loc, many of you know that, a published author and a mother of two, which we also share. And as Siobhan mentioned, or Natalie mentioned, I'm confused at this point, I was delighted to co-author an article with Anna about raising children with disabilities while also having a demanding career. I think we were both blown away by the responses we got and the support. And it just goes to show, being transparent and open and honest, it does really matter because everyone has a story. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna. I don't know if you have a fun fact for us, but I'm going to turn it over to you to share your story.
My fun fact is, Natalie, when you were working at AT&T, I was a QA tester for linguistics at AT&T. I just realized, we were working on this, probably the same project, like doing all the speech, all the text, all the strings. That's how I learned QA. Yeah. Another fun fact is I wanted to be a volleyball player forever and ever. So I was in the Catalan national team. I trained to go into the Olympics. And the very fun fact is that I broke 3 fingers and I never went to the Olympics. But that's a fun fact, right? A couple of things. So I didn't make the 100 CIO women. I made the top 10 and I'm on the cover. Another fun fact is that I don't have 2 kids, I have 4. So I gave birth to 3, 1 died, and I raised 2 other kids. So I'm the mom of 4. What can I say? I mean, when I hear Natalie and Siobhan and, Kathleen and so many women on this call, it's, for me, somebody was just telling me, you're like from another galaxy. I said, okay, I am from another galaxy. I don't care. It's all about, in my case, God and vision. I see where we need to go. I saw where VMware had to go. I saw where NetApp had to go. I see Eva Klavinova on the call, who is my 3rd sister. Hi, Eva. Eva, Sylvia Vari. I don't think Sylvia's on this call, but Eva, Sylvia, and I, for the last 13, 14 years, we have thousands of followers, and we've mentored thousands and thousands of women. And that is so much passion and dreaming big. And just, I will never forget the first years of just Sylvia and Eva and Anna just dreaming, right? And we never knew what the heck we were building, but we had so much fun. And that's how all the connections started. And today, Women in Localization is the place that offers the most innovation around globalization anywhere. So that's what we built. That's an incredible fact, right? It's been many decisions, a lot of evolution, obsessed. We are obsessed, and to be on the cover of all these magazines shows a lot of obsession behind this. And being a mom, right? Being a mom, and when can you hit hard? It's probably more when the kids are a little bit older. I couldn't do all the things that I'm doing lately, when my kids were young. And Kathleen, knows my story very, very well, that I have a kid with autism that for, let's say, 20 years, I spent 7 hours a week doing autism therapy, right? So people don't see those things. Siobhan, when you were talking about having 4 kids in like 5 years, that is so much work. I also want to alert, how important it is to stay healthy and to have a good partner and to place your boundaries, male or female, right? If you have all these big dreams and you're obsessed with innovation and leadership and training others and reaching as many people as possible, you yourself need to stay very balanced. And so, making the choices to stay strong. What is it that keeps you grounded? If it's meditation, if it's running, if it's dancing, if it's seeing people, if it's, 1 day a week, you need to be out in nature, learn something new, is as important. I learned that the what is very cool, what she's doing or what he is doing. But the most important, I think, and what propelled me personally was the how. I had to learn, I had to give myself a lot of coaches and 360s and Hogans and Myers-Briggs and strength finders and, just letting myself be criticized or being given feedback and listening to that, finding the themes, right? Finding the themes of what is it that people are seeing that I wasn't seeing. I think that's what was the tipping point for me. The other thing that I would say is as an undergrad and postgrad studies, it's all about linguistics. But for the last 30 years, I've been in engineering. And when people say like, oh, how come a linguist, is the head of the Procore platform, #1, design and construction and engineering platform in the world, I'm like, well, it has come with a lot of studying, and I had to study a lot of engineering classes. I can create a database. I've like all of, like Natalie and Siobhan, learned like a sponge. The best thing that happened to me ever was working for a chief operating officer at VMware, right? Or traveling with the CEO of VMware to open an office in China. Like people that allow you to travel and run with them. I remember the first time I went with the senior vice president of sales VMware to in Japan, or traveling with the executive vice president of sales from NetApp. I can't keep up with these guys. Like they walk fast, they talk fast, they have 3 secretaries, and there I was with them, right? So learning to see how they operate very differently. They're very well organized. They're very clear. They're very thoughtful. They're very focused, right? So being on top of these companies comes with a lot of learning. And I think this is what I was able to do, right? From a translator to a senior manager to a manager. Then I thought, well, localization is nice, but localization is not all that you need to turn these companies around. And so that's when I got into strategy. And then I said, well, it's not enough. You need to run the product life cycle. If you're able to influence how the chief operating officer works, and so that's how I got myself into more and more trouble.
That's a great story. So I think everyone's curious. So you did make this move recently to Procore. So I'd love to know what was the thought behind that, because that was a big step for you. You were very settled at NetApp. It wasn't a challenge. You probably could do that job in your sleep. So I'm assuming you were ready for the next challenge. So if you want to share that.
I had never been the head of a platform. So, when you're head of globalization, you're supporting all the departments inside of a company. You can push the boundaries of globalization. You can do market insights. You can do a lot of strategy. You can have a kick-ass localization team. You can do AI. We developed a patent with my team. A month ago, literally was uploaded at the US Patent Office, or 6 weeks ago. That's when I decided I needed to change. I thought I have pushed my team so hard and so wide, and they are well embedded inside NetApp. They're very respected. They've won awards. They're all very empowered. I made sure when I was preparing to leave, and you get offers, go to work for Google, go to work for Amazon, go to work for Microsoft. I was being very deliberate into what I want. I didn't want a lower title. I wanted more responsibility. And more responsibility for me meant I need to own the platform and how it moves globally. And so what that means is now I have product managers and engineering and international market penetration and the globalization team and, PLC and stuff like that. And that's very powerful if you can orchestrate all of that my challenge now is to turn this company around and make it get out of the States. They're number one in the States, but they're not, number one globally. So that's the challenge.
Well, I think there's no doubt in my mind, and probably anyone else in this room, that you can do that based on the results you've done in the past.
We'll see. It's week 5, so we'll see.
All right. Well, thanks, Anna. I appreciate that. So we're now at the end of the presentation, so we want to open it up for QA. And I don't know, Maria, if there are any questions from the audience, but I have a few to kick it off with, and then we can certainly open it up, and maybe Maria will have you read them. But let me just kick it off with a really easy one. And I love each one of you guys to answer this. What do you do for fun? I mean, we got to have work-life balance. So Natalie, what's one fun thing that you love to do?
Well, lately, I'm exploring Donegal because I just relocated to Donegal during the pandemic, Donegal, Ireland, which is northwest coast of Ireland. For those who are not familiar, it's not the most well-known spot in Ireland. I know a lot of us in localization are familiar with Dublin, maybe even Belfast and Galway, but I relocated to rural Ireland in a very small town. So lately I've been visiting lots of beaches and going on lots of hikes and things like that with my family. And right now that's my favorite activity, and very much welcome after the very strict lockdown that we had here. So that's my current passion. Aside from that, I'm a musician and I play piano and I sing and I love, listening to music and playing music. I was a music composition major originally in college, so music is
That's
a big thing for me. No volleyball skills. Definitely, you don't want me on, if you don't want me on your volleyball team, but I can definitely play some instruments. So.
Well, and I love seeing those pictures of the beach. I really forgot, how beautiful the west coast of Ireland was with the beaches. Yeah. So Siobhan, how about you? I mean, you've got 4 kids, so you've got plenty of entertainment, right?
Yeah, exactly. I love hearing about Donegal. It is heaven and earth. It's a beautiful place to live, but also must be so different. I'm not a musician, but I'm a music appreciator. So pre-pandemic, live music was my personal hobby. So that would be where I would spend all of my pennies. My husband and myself and my friends. But I think these days it's a cliche in LA, but hiking is a big one with my husband, with my kids. Camping, we're actually going wilderness camping next week, totally off the grid. Talk about desperate to get away from all forms of communication. Coverage where we're going. So that's become really fun. I think actually partly because nobody can reach you and nobody can be on screens. It's just a way to, it's a cliche, but be present is really nice. And California is beautiful. So
yeah, especially this time of year. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And Anna, what about you? What do you like to do for fun?
Oh, I do so many things for fun. I made this promise that I would run every day since January 1st. So we're in June. So I've been running every day, every single day. I'm sick, I'm not sick. It's raining, it's not raining. I get up and I go and run. So I have all my clothes left. Then when I come back, I'm exhausted and I dance while I make my coffee and my breakfast. I get myself all pumped up. Like I learned how to download, music that keeps me up and happy. And I do a little Instagram video every single day. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, why haven't you downloaded your video yet? Because sometimes they see me dancing or, you guys are probably going to be on the video. So that's a lot of fun. And I also love to listen to my kids now. They're all 21, 2 are 20 and 1 is 19, and just hearing where their brains are going and kind of just being so amazed that they are starting their lives, that gives me a lot of joy. I do have to say I'm an empty nester, so I stopped cooking. I'm done cooking for the last 20 years, so much that I'm cooking. So I'm enjoying DoorDash or restaurants or that kind of stuff.
I'm totally with you.
Yeah,
I've done the
I don't know.
same
I'm
thing.
taking a break from cooking. But yeah,
That's
just and I enjoy talking, doing things like this, right? And I get 10, 100 emails a day through LinkedIn or Facebook or WhatsApp or whatever. So sometimes I answer some of them. Just, keeping people pumped and creating the community that we need. We're losing a lot of women in the workforce. So I'm trying to spend time on that too.
Okay, great. So do we have any questions from the audience?
We have a question. I just wanted to say that there's no other session after this one. There is a networking session starting now, but we can stay here as long as you want to. That's no
Yeah,
problem
isn't it
on my
happy
side.
hour?
Exactly. And we have a question from Carol Faustino. She explained that for different reasons, she's feeling exhausted, tired, unproductive, that the imposter syndrome has hit her so hard. And she
Yeah.
wonders if you have ever gone through such a challenging period and how did you overcome it?
Oh, never. Of course, all the time. Yeah, I mean, I can go a little bit. The imposter syndrome is real, but then you need to get over it. Like you need to write some little post-its on your mirror to say, I'm okay, I'm enough, I'm good, I kick ass, I'm a mom. I'm a translator at heart. I'm passionate about all these things. I love my job. But as I was saying, and I was talking to two other female executives that actually had serious heart problems last month, that if you're feeling exhausted, please take 3-4 weeks break, like take a big break. Just get out, just stop, just talk to your boss or HR, whoever it is, and completely reset. Life is short, there's, if you need to see a therapist, like who cares, right? Like here in the States, I know in Europe, seeing a therapist means like you're crazy or you need a shrink or something. Here in the States, like everybody's talking to a therapist. We all need a coach, we all need friends, so try to let it all out, and hopefully you can take a big break. Your company will understand.
That's great advice, Anna. And I really appreciate, Carol, your question. I also agree with Anna. Imposter syndrome is real, and I've definitely had it, and I've done loads of research into it. And one of the pieces of advice that I saw that I tried and made a difference for me, it sounds counterintuitive, but do something in your personal life challenging to you and overcome it, and you actually build confidence. So in my case, of all things, I did an acrobatics circus class, and then I also tried a few other boot camp things that I'd never tried before that were totally not my kind of thing, and I always thought I wouldn't be able to do. And after doing them and sort of figuring them out, it's interesting, but it actually makes you feel more confident, and it sort of helps you professionally as well. So recommend that. It's not helpful if you're exhausted for me to suggest some physically active things, but that's something that I've always dealt with, especially before big executive reviews and things like that. Sort of, oh no, am I prepared? So taking a break, getting outside, all of the advice Anna had as well, I think is absolutely on point.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, what I found is I have got, and I think Anna put that in the notes too, is I get up every day and I do 2.5, 3 mile walk. Otherwise, I've got 4 crazy dogs that, or have too much energy. So they looking at me makes me get out. You forget the day, and just being out in the open air brings joy to me. Freedom, joy, just exercise. And I tell people, even if you're depressed, get out, move. It helps your psyche. So I think we're all along the same pages with that. And I'm sure, Natalie, you agree with that too. You're always hiking somewhere,
I try. I appreciate the question, and I think Anna and Siobhan have given such great advice. The only thing I can add is, sometimes I think we think it's imposter syndrome when it might actually just be that we're overwhelmed. And during this pandemic, women have disproportionately taken on more and more caregiving responsibilities for children, for elders, for household responsibilities, homeschooling, all kinds of things. And, as a mom of 2 young kids, ages 4 and 7, I sometimes think, oh, I'd love to do this. I'd love to do that. I have all these things I'd love to do, but I simply don't have the time right now. And it's easy to fall into this trap where you feel overwhelmed and burdened and just pushed so far down that then you feel imposter syndrome. I think that's actually the result of all the other things going on. It's not that you normally would feel that you're less than others or compare yourself to others. It might just be that you don't have any space left for yourself because you're, so overwhelmed with work. And a lot of us, in the workplace have been influenced by the pandemic as well, with our businesses either being hurt financially or the opposite, growing tremendously during the pandemic. One simple thing I can suggest, someone gave me this advice a while back, is make a list of things you can do in 5 minutes to make yourself feel better. And you'd be amazed how many small things you can list. Because I was thinking, 5 minutes, what can I get done in 5 minutes? Because I'm more of a deep focused person. I'd like to take like hours to do something. But the list of things, like even something like drink a glass of ice water, listen to your favorite song, look up some funny jokes, send a text to a friend, call a relative and talk to them even for a couple minutes just to check in, send a thank you email. Like, the list is really long of things you can do in just 5 minutes to take time for yourself. So, you don't have to start training for a marathon. You don't have to like start writing a blog, like, keep it simple is what I would advise when you're feeling overwhelmed. The best thing you can do is find even 5 minutes for yourself where you are doing something simple to just make yourself feel better and fill that bucket up. And then you start to feel, I think, better about yourself overall.
I would say that mental health is very, 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 very real for the last year and a half. And getting out of it, is very tough. There's a lot of people that live alone. There's a lot of people that don't have health benefits. I mean, we're assuming that, you have a mountain to go and hike and that you're covered with health benefits. So I like what Natalie was saying of start with something, even if it's your own little sacred little thing that nobody needs to know about, right? Like getting out 5 minutes or putting that song that you love, but find happy songs. Don't find songs that are gonna make you cry. Like all those little things, but sometimes you need to go to a professional to see how they're gonna get you out of that. So don't think that you have to do it alone. It takes a lot to find it inside of you, to pull that grit or that energy. So reaching out, I think, would be very, very important. If anybody's feeling like that, text me or send me a message through LinkedIn. Happy to talk to anybody about that. You may not have somebody to play Scrabble with, I mean, everybody's situation is different, sometimes I've talked to a lot of women that are stuck in abuse or stuck alone or stuck. So we have to be careful, right? Like just to tailor a little 1 inch at a time. Sometimes you have to do it every 30 minutes at a time. Like don't worry, it's gonna be okay. It will pass. Somebody needs to be there to tell you that it will pass, and pull you out, right?
All right,
Thank
great.
you.
Well, I hope that helped. Yeah, any more questions?
Yes, we still have 2 more questions, as long as you are okay to answer them. The first one is, how do you find a mentor in the localization industry?
Join Women in Localization, come on. There's a mentoring program there.
They have a great mentoring program. Yeah, that's the best source. Women and men can join, so.
Yeah, and I think as well, ask, because if there's someone that you really feel a connection with, that you could learn from and is approachable. You know, if nothing else, you will probably make that person's day by asking them. And, you know, if it's someone you respect, they'll probably, you know, be confident enough to tell you if they don't have bandwidth to take it on. But, you know, they will probably be flattered that you ask them. So ask. And that could be at least the start of a connection and a relationship.
And I would
That's right.
also-
And all they can say is, no, they don't have time, right? But they want to help. And I have to say, from my very first up close and personal panel that I did back in January, we had a number of folks on the call that asked for mentors, and I ended up mentoring 2 from our session. And it's been so rewarding. And we've kept in touch over time. Both have made career moves or improved their careers. And it's a lot of fun for us as a mentor too. So I totally agree with that advice. Go ahead, Natalie.
Yeah, I would just add, you know, be clear if you know what you need help with. Be as clear as you can when you reach out to someone, because, you know, I've had requests that are vague, like, can you be a mentor? And I'm like, well, kind of depends on what you need, you know, and what you want. But then I've had other requests that are like, I really need help with this. Do you have a book or an article or some suggestions or some quick tips? And it's amazing, even like in a LinkedIn in-mail. You know, I've been able to help people solve, you know, problems the more specific they can be. So I would say, you know, be very clear about what you need when you reach out, because for most of us, I think when we get requests to be a mentor, it can be like, okay, what kind of mentoring do we need? Are we talking like weekly? Are we talking like you just need some quick advice? So be specific on what you need help with, because I think that like, I'd like to check in with you once a quarter is very different from, or, you know, I just need some advice via email or something. So I think, you know, I tend to answer most of those emails that I get in LinkedIn messages, unless it's just a request to buy translation services, which I don't always answer all those. But if it's a sincere request from somebody who needs help, I will always try to answer. I think most of us are good about that.
Thank you so much. And the second and final, go ahead, Caitlin, if you want to add something.
No, I was just going to say,
Okay.
final question. Thank you.
Good. So it's from an anonymous attendee, and she wants to know, she says that she's at the point where Natalie, where you were talking about, she has created processes for localization at a nonprofit, and she feels nearly ready to move on, and she doesn't know how to do it. Do you have any suggestions?
Network. I mean, that's my number one piece of advice is you have to let people know you're looking, and you have to reach out to people and put yourself on their radar. I know it's very hard for a lot of us as women to kind of be our own promoters, but it's very important to network. You know, Siobhan talked about early on the relationships that you build, and Anna has been talked about the, you know, the work that she's doing to promote the fact that, you know, hey, she's achieving these great things, but it's also a lot of work to promote it and get the word out about the things that you have accomplished. So networking is the number one thing. Every single job I have had has been through a contact or a connection that I've had. Outside of my very first job with AT&T that I mentioned, which I did apply for, I haven't applied through a regular channel. It's always been through connections and introductions and referrals. So I definitely think that is the number one thing. That's my personal experience anyway.
I totally agree. And I think that's how we recruit in this industry too, right? I haven't done a resume in 20 some years, because once you get in it, you know, people get to know you. So I think I see Ulrich on the call. I think, Ulrich, we are all ready for the in-person next event, because we are dying to see people and hug people and have conversations and have a drink at the bar. So maybe you could come off mute and tell us, are we on for next year live?
We are, get out your agendas or load up your calendars. We are booked for the 11th and I'm sorry, no, I think 11, 12, 13 of July, Berlin Hotel Intercontinental. Be there.
Yes, that's fabulous. Can't wait.
And then we're hoping, if Berlin is a little far, we're hoping to find a location for the fall, either Bay Area or up Pacific Northwest. Currently looking into it. But okay. Berlin is signed. And you know, even if you have to bring a mask, it will happen. So
Okay, great news, great news. All right, well, I think we've come to the end of our session. Thanks, everyone. I cannot thank you enough. Everyone has super busy schedules. It's been just a pleasure to host you, and thanks for all the attendees and their participation. And hopefully we'll see you at the next one, live.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Kathleen.
much.
And
Cheers, everyone.
everyone else.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
Bye-bye.
Caitlin. Thank you,
Thank you, Kathleen.
Natalie. Thank you, Siobhan. And thank you, Anna, who's no longer there, for your patience and your flexibility. And I look forward to meeting you in the networking session right now, and hope you enjoy the conference tomorrow.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
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 Nice to see you, Kathleen.
You too.